What's up guys, welcome to Star Wars Timeline. Today I'm reviewing the first episode of the second season of the Ewoks show. For those of you who watch my channel know that I'm a huge fan of the first one. Let's see what's going on here. Before we begin, quick spoiler alert. I will talk about the characters and the storyline here. If you guys don't want to find out what happens, I urge you to go and watch the episode first. Please come back later and drop your comments in the video section below. Let me know what you thought how the second season starts. As always guys, I really appreciate all of your support. If you enjoyed this video and want to see my future reviews, please like and subscribe to my channel. Let's get into it. So I was a little surprised. The second season begins its episode, which is split into two parts, which actually makes up for two smaller episodes. I wasn't aware of that. But anyway, what was my first initial reaction in general, what I was seeing? So my only complaint about the first season was the fact that unfortunately the picture is a little bit grainy. Granted, it's an older show. They obviously didn't have the time to fully remaster it, so it kind of looks grainy. In the darker parts of the episodes, when they show like the nighttime, you see the colors are really washed out, and it's sometimes difficult to try to figure out what is happening on screen. And I was enjoying the storyline and the art so much that I was just a little bit disappointed. I'm happy to report, guys, this second season, I don't know how far they went into restoring the picture, but it looks much, much crisper. And I really appreciate this fact because the first part of this entire show that I come into that I really enjoy talking about is the artwork itself. It's obviously a more children-oriented story, so I'm more focused on the visuals, how the artists created these characters and the backgrounds and so forth, and I gotta say it's really, really brilliant here. First of all, I really enjoy the intro. It already shows us things which are snippets of what's to come in terms of story, the different elements, different creature designs, and it's also crispy and nice. I gotta say, the music has improved a lot too. It sounds a lot more like the original Return of the Jedi ending, where we hear the fanfare of the Ewoks, their theme song, which was actually changed for the Star Wars special editions. In the original one, there's like a lot of tribal beats and that whole overall theme going on of these like warrior-like creatures which have a tribal lifestyle and they live in the forest. So I really enjoyed the redesigned intro, a new musical theme. It really works for it really well. And I gotta say, as we start with this episode, the Crystal Cloak, man, the art is just awesome. The Ewok village, the details, like when they show the vegetation, when our friends are traveling right throughout the story and they get to the different part of the forest, I'm loving it. I really enjoy the kind of details the concept artists put behind those backdrops. It's so detailed and fun. It almost makes you feel like you're looking at Ralph McQuarrie paintings. I love that stuff. The characters themselves, they took just a little bit getting used to. I don't know what it is specifically. They kind of changed a little bit. They're still very recognizable, but they seem crisper a little bit or more detailed, or the colors are more vibrant and they come through a little bit more. So that's just a little bit of time to getting used to. Anyway, let's get into the storyline and let me tell you how I enjoyed the first episode. So we begin with Wicket's ceremony. He's about to become a warrior, and as Chief Chirpa is explaining to him, here's your belt of honor, and these are all the tasks that you must perform, which will basically add those little badges to your belt, which will prove the fact that you're now a full warrior. And as the rules are explained to him, he's like closing his eyes and he's daydreaming about all of these adventures he will have and save the day. I really love that stuff a lot because it speaks a lot to our childhood imaginations and how we always dreamed of having grand adventures, and you always ran to the street, to the yard, and played with your friends in the sandbox, and you always had to use your imagination and picture yourself like, you know, challenging like these great opponents or overcoming difficult situations and play pretend like you're in a fantasy setting. That was really, really cute. But then we find out that how this particular fact is going to play into the rest of the episode. The fact that Wicket wants to become a warrior. Now we have a little problem. Latara has a dilemma. Her little trinket, her crystal, has broken. And of course she comes to Tebow, who, as we learned in the previous season, he's learning to be the next shaman in the tribe. Which, my explanation to it was basically he's learning the Force, so to speak, right? Because Force is basically the magic property in the Star Wars universe. Anyway, she comes to him, it's like, hey, can you fix my little crystal? And he's love-struck with her. He really wants to help, but he has no solution for it. And she's like, what good are you then if you're not going to help? And then, of course, we are revealed this special detail. He said, now, hold on a second. There is perhaps an answer for this. only the Ewok, the hero, who is able to obtain the Crystal Cloak, will able to cure your crystal and actually give you a new one, because whatever that person touches becomes a crystal itself. And she says, this is what we're gonna do. This is the master plan. Wicket wants to become a warrior. This is the piece to the puzzle that she needs to solve it. And she says, okay, I'm gonna enlist him. He's gonna help me to go get this Crystal Cloak. And of course, we see Wicket and Latara, they're flying in their gliders to this new land. And guys, I gotta tell you, once again, I love how the show expands the lore and the world of Andor Moon. It shows you all of these different locations which are quite stark and very different from the Ewok village, but they look so imaginative, and a lot of them really mesh well with the whole thing. It makes you feel like, oh wow, now we're checking out a different part of the forest. I really like that a lot. So they arrive into the domain of Graka's premises, that he's part of the forest that he controls. And we see this floating mountain, which once again I find is just a visually stunning looking piece of art, and it's just so imaginative. It's a floating island, and it's floating on top of this lava pit. I'm like, okay, this is pretty interesting. That's very exciting. So they crash land, and now we see the effects of Graka's magic. First of all, I really like that tiny plant that comes alive, and it starts like a helicopter. It starts flying around, and it actually goes to this Graka. We instantly recognize that he's not a good guy, because everything that he touches, including that little pet creature, immediately turns to crystal. And I really enjoyed his design. He looks like this evil giant gargoyle or something like that, or half man, half dragon. Very awesome design. Does it fit into the Ewok show / Star Wars universe? It kind of does. Once again, we have to remember this is a very kid-oriented show, which once again was competing with a lot of other popular shows in the 80s, and there were a lot of fantasy elements there. So I'm not really against that. That particular creature, it still fit within the Star Wars lore for me. So I like the imaginative look. So he starts antagonizing the Ewoks. He's like, you entered my domain. Now you will see that I'm all powerful and I control the cloak, right? He has the Ewok's cloak now. And he puts these sparks, like these sprinkles in the air. And like, oh, look, these real crystals. But they immediately start attacking the Ewoks. And they go into these forests of giant crystals. The effects are really well done. Whoever animated the whole sequence, guys, I would say this is really well done. It almost feels like watching a full animated feature film. I would gotta say that the animation has stepped up from the first season quite a bit. It's a lot more nuanced and detailed. The sparks themselves, the effects are very visual and very cool looking. And where all of these crystals start like extending out, and first they build some kind of like a fortress or block the pathway for Ewoks. So like, oh wow, this is really, really cool. Of course, our friends can't help and solve this problem on their own. This is where Kneesa and Teebo join the fight. They arrive on their own gliders. It's like, hey guys, we're here to help. And together they defeat this Graka. But unfortunately, at the end, the cloak was destroyed, which for me was, it posed a good question. Like, hold on a second. What's going to happen in the future? Did this cloak really disappear? Or did it turn to part of the bottom of the lava pit into a crystal? Did it survive? Because to me, the whole point of it was like they were trying to procure this cloak to restore Latara's little crystal, but they don't get it. The important thing is that our friends venture in. At the very least, what they do is they take away that magical cape from the villain, from Graka, so he's unable to use it anymore and cause harm for the rest of the Andor, right? So at least they accomplish that task, and the friends are safely back together. Again, I didn't even read the title of this episode, and I didn't anticipate for the episode to kind of end halfway, because I'm like, oh, okay, so they're splitting it into two. So even though the Crystal Cloak was a bit on the short side, it still managed to tell a successful tale. It told us exactly what was happening, it led us through the adventure, it gave us an exciting moment, and it gave us the ending, that all of our friends are escaping home unscathed. That was effective. On the short side, I wish it was longer because there was clearly more story to tell there. I'm beginning to suspect, like, since it's the last season that the Ewoks show ever saw the light of the day of, they probably had to trim a lot of stuff down. And they were trying to cram a lot of different episodes, but miniaturized. They had to make them smaller and downscale them. Anyway, this is where the first episode ended. So far, I'm like, oh man, I'm digging the better visuals, I'm digging the intro music, I'm digging the overall look of the show. All right, let's see what the second half of this first season premiere is. So the second episode is called The Wish Plant. And here we are with a completely different story. Now the focus is back on Kneesa. We learned in the first season that she is Chief Chirper's daughter, and she is the next protege to take the lead and become the next chief of the village. But before that time, she has to prove herself in many different respects to show that she can be a successful leader. And in this episode, she's trying to garden, right? And misfortune befalls her, and her entire garden of plants dies out. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like cute, but also heartbreaking that this last plant, it's like animated like it's living being, but then it passes away, it dies. And all of the friends are checking it out, and it's like, come on, let's go and play with us. Leave the garden alone. And she's clearly upset about it. But what happens next was pretty cool. The Leaf Queen shows up, and she has, I have a request for you, Kneesa. I want you to look after this very special plant. And all you have to do is show it a little bit of love, and it's gonna be fine. I'll check up on it, and later on I'll come and get this plant back. And when Kneesa takes it back to her home, it was really cool to figure out that once she made a wish, it's a wishing plant. Whatever she asks for, this plant delivers. But the animators and storytellers very effectively show us that whenever somebody makes a wish, one of the petals, one of the flowers actually dies out. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was such a nice little nuance, and it shows us like, hey, if you keep asking and wishing for things without any kind of reservations, then you will kill this plant. That's actually not good. I like that a lot because sometimes, you know, they have to really show it and demonstrate to you, like with exposition, explain this is what it does. In this particular episode, because I guess they had to rush things along, they just give you a little hint what happens. And it was very nuanced and very small, but very effective nonetheless. Anyway, Kneesa tries to take care of it. I love it. It was such a cute and endearing part when she like carries it around in a baby cart. It's like, oh, my little beautiful plant. She actually kisses the pot. It was just so cute and ridiculous. But then T-Bow, Latara, and Wicket, they make fun of her. And like, hey, you know, what's about with you falling in love with this plant? But once they figure out what it actually does, that it's a wishing plant, they all try to exploit it. And, you know, being the children that they are, they're a little bit mean. They're like all trying to one-up each other, and they steal it from one another, and they're asking for more and more wishes and up to a point where it eventually dies. And I felt bad, honestly. I'm like, oh man, if I was a child watching this, I would feel bad for Kneesa because she was supposed to look after it. There was a responsibility given to her, and her friends are completely ruining the thing for her. I'm like, oh man, I really don't appreciate what Wicket and the friends are doing. I'm actually quite appalled that, come on, you guys are being meanies. That's not really cool. So the plant is dead, but once again, the friends are feeling remorseful because they are friends, and they're like, look, we're going to try to help you. So T-Bow tries to resolve it with his magic. He's like, I'm just going to sprinkle it here, and it's going to help us. Of course, it doesn't help. Wicket, on the other hand, tries to show his prowess, and he tries to procure a similar-looking plant. He's like, don't worry about it, Kneesa. I'll just get us another plant. It's going to be all fine. I appreciate the fact that the friends came around. They weren't being mean anymore. They stopped when they realized what they were doing because they're good. Ewoks are good creatures. And they're like, look, we got to help her. You know, we really messed this up for her. And before the Leaf Queen shows up, we got to make sure we handle the situation. And at the end, when the plant completely dies and the queen is there to pick up on the plant, what really cures it is the tear from Kneesa, right? She cries. She's remorseful for what she has done, but she said, no, I will take responsibility. I'm the one who was supposed to look after it. I'm the one who failed. I'm going to go and explain myself to the Leaf Queen. Guys, once again, I love Kneesa. I love what she stands for. She's a really great role model for children because in this particular situation where she failed and there's seemingly no answer, there is no resolution for their conflict, like what else is she going to do? All she has is a tear left to shed for this little plant. But she honestly stepped out and she said, look, we're sorry. Please don't blame my friends. It was all me. I was supposed to look after it, and I really tried, and I loved it, but it died. But when the queen goes inside, a magical moment happens. She reveals that the plant is fully restored because of Kneesa's love. Beautiful episode. Once again, despite the fact that they had to split this season premiere into two, and they're really smaller episodes. Each and one of them works really, really well because you see the beginning of the story, You see how our friends go through conflict and transformation, and how they come up victorious in the end. And the problem is resolved. And of course, we got to give that sweet moment to the children that all will be good in the end. And both episodes accomplished that beautifully. I loved the visual style of both episodes. I loved the look of it. I loved the new creatures that it introduced. Once again, I'm pulled in. I'm so stoked to keep reviewing this show for you guys. And I'm like secretly imagining myself like, hey man, what if Disney Plus picks up on it, and this May 4th, they announced to us like, hey, we're going to continue the Ewoks show, and we're actually going to give you either a full-blown reboot or actually continue where we left off and continue this classic vintage show into a new generation. That would be so awesome. I really love it. Anyway, guys, please let me know in the comments section below, what did you think of it? I'm particularly interested to find out, what did you think of a smaller format of each episode? Did it work for you? Or did it feel like they were really cut off and there wasn't enough story told in each one? Because it honestly worked for me. I didn't have a problem with it. Everything was cool. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you come back for my next review. I love watching it, and I love reviewing it for you guys as well. I'll see you next time. Take care.